Hey golfers, I'm Drew Maholder, Second Swing Golf here at PGA Show Demo Day, and the rain has started to fall once again here. Joined by Chris Voshall with Mizuno. We got to talk about some irons. So
Yes.
One of the things we're most excited about at Second Swing is when Mizuno has new irons. We can talk about the forge feel. We can talk about the performance that Mizuno's had over the years, but it's also when you guys go into the innovations of the technology. We're talking about some new face structure this year, and things like that. It's really exciting. So, two new models in particular that are added this year that we want to talk about: JPX 925 forged and Pro S-3. Let's kind of dive in there and what should the viewers and the audience really know about with those models?
I'm going to talk about the 925 Forge, because this is really an exciting launch for us. It's funny because it's comes from a long lineage of just forgings that have a little bit of distance built into it. So people think they kind of understand this club. If you've known the 923 Forge, the 921, 919, it goes way back. But this one's totally a different animal than that one. What I mean by that is the forging process. We actually invested with Chuo Koyo, our exclusive foundry who forges our clubs in Hiroshima, Japan, on some new equipment that's allowed us to forge thinner than we've ever forged before. So with this one, we've incorporated what we call our contour lips face. With that new machine, we're able to get down to only 1.5 millimeters of face thickness. Crazy thin for a one-piece forging. So with that, we forge the face and the neck out of a chromoly material, and then with that contour lips face, it's almost exactly like we have on our hot metal family. That means you're going to get higher ball speeds, you're going to get more consistent ball speeds, but because we're forging it in that one-piece face and neck, you're going to have incredible feel on it, so it doesn't feel overly hot.
Right, and one of the cool pieces that I remember too about learning about the product and even testing it was that the longer irons are built kind of maybe slightly differently versus the smaller irons, just to provide a little bit more maybe softer feel and control on those shorter shots, and then the longer shots maybe a little bit more forgiveness packed in there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. You know, when we're talking about going that thin on a face down to 1.5 millimeters, you don't necessarily need that when you're talking 8-iron, 9-iron pitching wedge. So we automatically engineer almost like a combo set build within it. So in the 925 Forge, that chromoly material lives on the 4-iron all the way down to the 7-iron.
Okay.
When you get to the 8, we transition to our 1025E Pure Select mild carbon steel. Super soft material, same thing we use on our muscle backs and our wedges and stuff like that. So again, it's distance and launch where you need it, and then feel and control where you need it.
And then one question I had in particular, because again, we talked about Mizuno irons, the ones that are already kind of in line, right, and we've been fitting the last couple of years, Mizuno Pro 243 and 245. Where would this fit into the lineup that is already out there that golfers are seeing in the bays?
It's a great question. There's a ton of overlap when you're talking that player's distance category, when you're getting clubs that are smaller but designed with a little bit more pop to them. So to me, this fits really close to where that 245 model is. 245 is that hollow body design with a little bit of tungsten that's low and on the toe and the heel of that. So the 245 to me launches a little bit higher, and this is going to be a little bit more forgiving. So it's really, I like to talk about, do you want launch forgiveness or miss-hit forgiveness? And I think JPX really shines in that miss-hit forgiveness.
Yeah, so it's almost in that player's distance category in a sense, but it almost has the feel, would you say, kind of like even a softer player's iron just because of the forging process that you guys are able to go with.
And with that, because we forge our face and neck together with the grain flow forging process, when you're talking that category, there's so many golf clubs that say forged on them, and they charge a forged price on them. But when you start to look at it, if you want that feel and you want that vibration of a true forging, you need that face and neck to be one part, and we're the only ones who are doing that.
Yeah, and it kind of really completes what is the JPX 925s when you include the hot metals that were released last year, would have already been really successful in the bays. And so I do see one more thing here, Chris. I see a black finish down there, so we got to talk about that.
So with the JPX Forge, it's coming in two finishes for the first time ever. We've got our soft white satin and this black ion finish, which is just a totally kind of blacked out look. Really mean looking, really aggressive, but ultimately it's going to deliver on all that feel with a cool new cosmetic.
Now I want to transition to Mizuno Pro S-3 because that's another one that's really exciting, and I know there's a historical element maybe to the Pro S-3s as well.
Yeah, and it's funny because you can almost approach where that club came from in a couple of different ways. I'll start by saying that in this 925 family there's no tour model. The tour model shifted to Mizuno Pro, but ultimately the idea behind Mizuno Pro was to develop some new what we call modern classics. Clubs that are going to kind of live and withstand the test of time. There's not a lot of technology built into them. What I mean is not a lot of distance technology. These are all about feel, they're all about control. So these are all about designing one-piece iconic forgings. They're just going to deliver on feel and control.
Yeah.
So with that, the S3 features our grain flow forged process. That HD process concentrates a little bit more mass low in the club, and ultimately is using our 1025E pure select mild carbon steel. Again, softest material we use, and it's got the copper underlay with that. So with another thing that's cool about how we design a Mizuno Pro, and when we're talking in that world, is we work with our tour players, and specifically we work with our master craftsmen in the design world. So what I mean is we'll engineer it in 3D, we'll cut some 3D master models, and then from there we'll hand grind those and reverse scan back to use that data, that hand ground master craftsman data, to create the final forging molds. So that delivers on the feel and the looks.
Yeah, you can really tell there's a level of detail that kind of goes into this entire process of designing the shape and ultimately getting to the final product of the Mizuno Pro S-3. There's certainly something there, and it speaks to kind of the legacy maybe of Mizuno as well. There's a little bit of touch with maybe that script logo there as well, where it kind of looks back on Mizuno's history. I wanted to also touch on the the sole designs of these irons, and because turf interaction is such a big piece, and golfers are delivering the club maybe slightly different from player to player. So how has Mizuno addressed that in the Pro S-3 and maybe in the JPX 925 forge?
Yes, since I'm holding the Pro, I'll talk about that. On this one, we worked really heavily with our tour players on that, because that's the key. This is really who this club's for. So with that, we've seen just a major trend in those younger players who hit so aggressively into the ball, with a little bit more shaft lean and needing a little bit more bounce on that leading edge. So, we've seen some of our competitors and some other irons in the market where they put a lot of bounce on that leading edge, and ultimately it ends up being a lot of bounce throughout the majority of the sole. We wanted to find a sole that would have that bounce exposed early, but ultimately glide through the turf even cleaner. So with that, we added a trailing edge bevel and a leading edge bevel, so it allows it to enter the turf quickly, but also not dig and not really have any hard edges that kind of tend to drag in the turf.
Yeah, and that clearly, it seems to be pretty clean in the sense of the performance has been really good.
Totally.
One thing I wanted to ask one more time here on the Pro S-3, because I asked it with the JPX 925 forge, was kind of where this fits into the family then.
Yeah.
Because now we're talking about Mizuno Pro 241 and 243, so where would this fit in with those two?
This, honestly, it sits, if it's 241 and 243 right here, this is sitting really close to that 241.
Okay.
So it's definitely in between those two models. The 243 has a little bit of that player's distance element into it. It's got chromoly longer irons. This doesn't have any of this. So honestly, this is like it's really close to a muscle back.
Yeah, kind of like just a classic Mizuno iron that I think people have come to know and love over the years.
Totally, and that's where with that S3 name, that S stands for signature, and this whole family is going to be a family that's going to continue to evolve and continue to grow. So look for more S's in the future.
Interesting. Well, now we're really excited about what's coming down the pipeline from Mizuno. So Mizuno JPX 925 forge and the Pro S-3 irons, really good stuff here. I know we're really excited about all of that second swing, but Chris, thanks for the insight on that.
I appreciate it.